الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونستنصره إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين والآخرين صلوا على محمد. عباد الله، أدعوكم ونفسي المذنبة لتقوى الله، فقد أمرنا الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم التنزيل فقال جل من قائل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. I bear witness there is no deity but Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was his final messenger. And I call upon you and upon myself to shield ourselves from the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to shield ourselves. Nattaqillah. We shield ourselves through the obedience of the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the news of those who came before us in the Quran, so we can draw some conclusions, we can learn some lessons. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكلا نقص عليك من أنباء الرسل ما نثبت به فؤادك وكلا نقص عليك من أنباء الرسل ما نثبت به فؤادك. And we mention or we tell you of the news or of the stories of the prophets before you, with things that may make your heart steadfast. So the stories are told in the Quran so we can draw conclusions from them, but also stories from today can be told where we can learn some lessons, where we can apply some of these lessons in our lives. So today I'm going to tell you a story, and it is a story of a 101-year-old man who died in a hospice care in the state of New Jersey. That was on May 19th, 2018, so about a year and a half ago. This man 80 years ago earned his PhD from one of the most prestigious universities in the world at the time. It was London University. It was in 1939 that he got his PhD in the history of Islam. Some claims, and I am of those who claim, that he probably, at the time of his death, the most knowledgeable person in the world on the history and the politics of the Muslim world and the Middle East. He was born in London in 1916 to a Jewish, middle-class Jewish family. And then in 1982 he became a US citizen and was teaching at Princeton University. He also was teaching at Cornell. He was a colleague of another professor who is the father of Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way. This man was the first person to redraw the map of the Middle East, claiming that the old map of the Middle East, where different countries were determined by the British and the French after the dismantlement of the Ottoman Empire, these countries have exhausted their use. They're no longer useful. They're useless. So he proposed that a new map is going to be drawn. Not along these lines that were drawn with a ruler that divided Egypt from Libya and divided Egypt from Sudan and Syria from Iraq and Jordan from Palestine. No, it was going to be a different map. That map is going to be along ethnic and sectarian lines. So he was proposing that Syria will be divided into a Alawi state on the shores of the Mediterranean and into a Druze state in the Golan Heights and in the south of Syria. Two Sunni states, one in Damascus, one in Halab, one in Aleppo. And he proposed that in a very famous paper of his, where he was proposing that the strategic depth of the safety of the state of Israel is from the Jordan River all the way to India. When he talked about dividing Syria into four different states, a Alawi, a Druze, a Sunni in the south and Sunni in the north, who should be fighting each other, he said, but what is more urgent than dividing Syria is dividing Iraq. Iraq must be divided into three different countries: Shia in the south, Sunni in the middle, and Kurdish in the north. So am I telling you about this guy? His name is Bernard Lewis, very, very well-known scholar, a preeminent scholar of Islamic history and the Middle East, and one of the founders of Islamophobia. One of the first respected scholars to ring the bell and say, be careful, the last clash is going to be between America and the Muslim world. And America is the last place that has to fear for itself from the Muslims. And he said, for Arabs, the only way to deal with an Arab is to punch him between the eyes, because he only understands the language of power. That is the kind of scholar Bernard Lewis was. And he was courted by presidents, he was courted by everyone, because he was the best scholar in that field. The worst human being, but the best scholar in that field. When Bernard Lewis died 1.5 years ago, at the age of 101 years old, in a hospice in New Jersey, he was carried and he was buried in Tel Aviv. He was buried in Tel Aviv. Even though he's a British citizen, was born in the UK, he was an American citizen, naturalized American citizen, but he was buried in Tel Aviv. Why am I telling you about Bernard Lewis? Because if you have for a second any doubt that what is going on in Palestine, what's going on in Syria, or what is going on in Iraq today, or what's going on in Yemen, because he talked about redividing Yemen into two countries. He talked about dividing Sudan into different countries, a Christian and a Muslim states. If you have any doubt that Palestine is not the epicenter of all of this turmoil, think again. Think again, because the guy who told you he's going to divide Iraq because the strategic depth of the safety and the security of the state of Israel extends right through Iraq. If you have any doubt, then think again. And if somebody wants to talk about, well, why are you talking politics on the minbar? Well, I subscribe to the idea that as a Muslim, I don't distinguish between the two. Al-Minbar of the Prophet ﷺ is not a place only to talk about ibadat. Well, but I believe politics is of the ibadat. Being aware of what is going on, being aware of what is happening to us as a community is part of the ibadat. مَنْ بَاتَ وَلَمْ يَهُمُّهُ أَمْرُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَلَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ. He who spends his night not concerned with the worries of the Muslims is not one of them. And I see some amongst us who would say, well, we shouldn't talk politics on the minbar. Why? Then you ask that person, do you believe in secularism? And they say, no, I don't believe in secularism. Okay, then why do we separate politics from our life? Is the murder of our brothers and sisters in China, in the Rohingya, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Palestine, or in Syria? Do you think the bombing of Idlib today has nothing to do with politics? Do you think it has nothing to do with your faith, with your religion? Yes, it does. So back to Palestine, and the fact that Palestine is in the epicenter of all these conflicts, according to the most preeminent scholar of politics in the Middle East and of Islam in the Middle East, Bernard Lewis, then why wouldn't you and I be concerned? Why wouldn't you and I really believe the guy who is saying something and doing something about it? Because we have a responsibility. Some would say that, too many problems around us, and we really need to worry about our own community, and we need to worry about our own stuff. Well, don't believe that your freedom in the United States as an American citizen is not connected to your faith. Imagine if the man in the White House today was not there and someone else was there. Things would be different. I'm not saying it's going to be better. I'd say it is different. So what I'm saying is your action makes a difference. Imagine now in the election, just imagine with me. There are 1 million people who do not support our president. And 1 million people support our president. And then the people who support him vote at the rate of 70%. And the people who do not support him vote at the rate of 50%. So this 1 million is going to have 500,000 votes, and this 1 million is going to have 700,000 votes. You do the math, who's going to win? The guy who gets off his couch, puts down the cup of coffee or the cup of tea, and goes and do something about it. Are we going to be like the community that says to Moses, go and your God and fight, we're going to be sitting here? Are we going to be brothers and sisters sitting and expecting different results? I think it was Einstein who said, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. This community is great. We are doing wonderful things. Some do not want us to do not want to share with us what kind of influence are we having. But we are making a big difference. For the first time ever in a US election, Palestine is mentioned in a debate. For the first time in the US election, a candidate, a different candidate, it's not the same candidate. So it's like the same one candidate saying the same. No, I'm talking about a different candidate is talking about, well, we really need to tie the US aid to Israel with its performance. So we can be all emotional about what is going on in Palestine or what's going on in Idlib or what's going on in Iraq. Emotion's not gonna do a whole lot. It is those young men and women who are pushing and who are really working on making a difference and educating politicians. And if they don't want to be educated, they're holding them accountable, withholding votes or pushing this vote here or pushing that vote there and making a difference. And this is what our message as Muslims is all about. That we don't sit and we just only pray to Allah. This community is doing great. Someone to tell us that we're not doing as good as we should. Someone to tell us that we are defeated. Someone to tell us that we are weak. But no, we're not. Believe it or not, we are more educated than the average citizen. We are younger than the average citizen. And you know what? We care a whole lot about this country. We care about its environment because that is our faith. The Prophet ﷺ told us, if you're doing your ablution next to a river, do not waste water. We care about animal rights because that is our faith. We care about the weak amongst us. That is the essence of our faith. So somebody wants to tell us, well, we don't really matter. No, as a matter of fact, we matter more, if not the same, as everybody else. Because we have a message that is really good, that is really consequential for this country. And somebody wants to tell us, you should step aside. You're the Muslims, you're the brown people. No, no. You know that this community on average pays more taxes than other communities? We have a place on the table. We have a place on the table, and we are making a difference. The changing in the scenery, now you're talking about when it was not acceptable for anybody to criticize the state of Israel and all the war crimes that it is committing against the Palestinians. Today, you're having Jewish organizations like Jewish Voices for Peace, who are in the forefront in the defense of the defenseless in Palestine. Let's make sure that Jewish Voices for Peace is not going to be more in the forefront in the defense of our brothers and sisters in Palestine than we are. But that change and these voices that are coming together, and they are reflected in these presidential debates, they are a direct result of activities. And if you want to say, well, do we really make a difference? Does it really make any difference? I don't subscribe to that, but think about it. Think about it if in the last elections, more people voted. Just imagine, we're not advocating for one party or another. This is definitely not the place for it. But just imagine with me, if more people voted for Democratic senators than voted for Republican senators, do you think it would have made a difference in this impeachment inquiry? Or that impeachment trial now? We're done with the impeachment inquiry. Next week we'll start the impeachment trial. Do you think if the Democrats were more in numbers in the Senate, would that have made any difference? It would have made a big difference. It is about people taking action, about people getting out and doing something, doing what they're supposed to do, really exercising their civic duties. Now, why do we say about Bernard Lewis? Why did we mention Bernard Lewis here? Because Bernard Lewis did not do all of these great things for his cause, did not do them alone. He had a community that was behind him. He had a community that was supporting him. In 1973, in Tulsa, so many people, probably 9 out of 10 people, here and anywhere you go in Fairfax, tell them, show me Tulsa on the map. They would not be able to show you Tulsa on the map. Tulsa, Oklahoma, that is. In 1973, the Jewish community came together when they felt that Israel is under attack, and they raised in one night $35 million. And they are on the wrong. And now we are on the right. We're defending people's right to remain in their homes. We're defending the right of people to pray in their places of worship, whether it is Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa or even Kanisat Al-Qiyamah. And they're preventing Muslims from praying at Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa and Christians from praying at Kanisat Al-Qiyamah, or they're making it very difficult for them to do so. We're doing the right thing. They are on the wrong, and he had people who would support him and support his effort. Are we not going to support our own cause, knowing that it is the focal point of so many of the things that are happening throughout the Middle East to our brothers and sisters? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لكم فاستغفروه. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونستنصره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد. صلوا على محمد. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين والآخرين. Brothers and sisters, today I'm here on behalf of AMP, American Muslims for Palestine. American Muslims for Palestine are doing a great job, a great service for all of us. Last year, they had 550 persons coming from 32 different states, coming to Washington, D.C. They visited half of the entire U.S. Congress, both House and Senate. And they went and they educated them and they told them about personal stories, about what is going on really in Palestine. Not only telling them a story and trying to convince them of the righteousness of our cause, but also to tell them we are here. I came from your district all the way from Kentucky. I came all the way from San Francisco. I came 3,000 miles away to come to you, to tell you, I'm watching you. I am observing your performance when it comes to the human rights of the Palestinians. And that is making a difference. Don't think for a second that that person, I mean, we assume that members of Congress are people of conscience and people who have integrity and people who, but I'm not going to bet on that. I'm not going to bank on that. I say, I assume you're a good person and you're going to do the right thing, but you know what? I'm just going to keep an eye on you. Because I'm going to make sure that everybody in my community is going to vote, that everybody in my community is going to be registered to vote to begin with. But exercising that civic duty is one of the very first things that we have to do, brothers and sisters. And if we don't do it, then we cannot complain. And if we don't do it, then we have no one to blame but ourselves. Now this year, AMP on March 22nd, for 3 days, they're going to bring 1,000 people from 40 different states. We have people who registered. So what I want you to do is I want you to register also for that advocacy day for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We are not a defeated community. We're not a weak community. They try to convince us that we are, but we really are not. So let us not act as if we are defeated. Let us act the strength that we have righteousness on our side, that a child who is 6 years old should not be arrested at 4 o'clock in the morning. That a person's house that he spent 20 years putting one penny over another to build a house, that house should not be demolished by the Israeli military. That people should have the right to pray in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Remember now, every time the Jews were forced out of Jerusalem, they said Jerusalem is very significant for them. Every time they were forced out of Jerusalem, it was the Muslims who brought them back. At the time of Umar ibn Khattab, they were prevented for 300 years from praying in Jerusalem. And when Umar ibn Khattab conquered Jerusalem, allowed them back in the city. When Sulaiman al-Qanuni rode his horse overlooking Jerusalem, the Jewish community came with a copy of Al-Uhd al-Umariyah, the covenant of Umar, and showed it to him and say, Umar guaranteed freedom of religion here. He took it and he put it in his head as a show of respect. It was when the Crusaders came, and for 91 years they killed the Muslims, the Jews, and even the Arab Christians. And they conquered Jerusalem, preventing everybody except themselves from praying in Jerusalem. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, a Kurdish man whose name is Yusuf, came and liberated Jerusalem from the Crusaders. And it was for the first time that Jews were allowed back in the city after 91 years of banishment. The 11th century rabbi who wrote to another rabbi, he said, God must be pleased with his people, the Jews, that he allows them to live under the rule of the sons of Ishmael. We have a great, glorious history. And we want to make sure that this is not forgotten. As we advocate, we have a plenty of treasures, historic, plenty of track record to show that we are good guardians of the holy places. In Al-Quds, the Prophet ﷺ telling Mu'adh ibn Jabal, Ya Mu'adh, سيفتح الله عليكم الشام من بعد من العريش إلى الفرات رجالهم ونساؤهم وإماؤهم في رباط إلى يوم القيامة فمن نزل منكم بساحل من سواحل الشام أو ببيت المقدس فهو في رباط إلى يوم القيامة. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. O Mu'adh, Allah will allow you to conquer the Levant from the side of Egypt all the way to the side of Iraq. The men, the women, and even the servants are in a state of guardianship until the day of judgment. All those who reside in Jerusalem and on the shores of Palestine are in a state of struggle until the day of judgment. Our brothers in Palestine are doing their job. We're expected to do ours. Brothers, we're expected to do ours. We have to be witnesses. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Bernard Lewis did his job. Bernard Lewis did an excellent job in doing his job, as a matter of fact. Died alone in a hospice care, but was buried in Tel Aviv. Tells you where his mind, where his heart, where his effort is. And all that community that is behind him did all of the support and made sure that he succeeded. Now we have 1,000 young men and women, and some not so young, by the way, who are coming to Washington, D.C. So I want to make sure that this community is going to chip in personnel and also in money, because it takes money. It takes money to do that kind of effort. And we have to believe that, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to look upon us with an eye of content that we have done our job, that we have gotten off the comfort of our couches, and we have done something for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Brothers, don't be complacent. I know sometimes in the khutbah, the masjid will be crowded and we tell people, please move forward. And you find a lot of people move forward, but there's about 1/3 of the people, they just don't move. And you say, please, brothers, make room. And some people just don't. Don't be of that kind, brothers. Wallahi, Allah is watching. Let's make sure that everything that we do is for the sake of Allah. If our smile in each other's faces is a sadaqah, so imagine everything else. So when we're calling you for action, please do not just let that message pass. At least you'd be held accountable. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from knowledge that is not put to use. So I've given you the knowledge. Now that you have the knowledge, you're stuck, brothers and sisters. So you have to put it to use. Either support by being there, or by supporting that effort with money, or doing both. من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. He who sees unrighteousness must change it with his hand, and if he can't, he must change it with his words, and if he can't, he should be bothered in his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. So we have a responsibility, and we cannot pretend that we don't have that responsibility, and we cannot think for a second that Palestine really, as important as every other cause is, Palestine is in the center of these causes, because everything that is happening is because of, or for the purpose of maintaining that occupation over Palestine. It is historic. It has been going on since the advent of Islam, wallahi. Since the advent of Islam, this struggle has been going on, and we have to do our part. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولى اللهم فيمن توليت اللهم واصرف برحمتك عنا شر ما قضيت إنك سبحانك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك تباركت ربنا وتعاليت. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة.